You know, in today's world, just keeping up feels overwhelming, right? Especially in complex areas like cybersecurity. Trying to sift through everything to find what you really need to know quickly, it's tough. And that's exactly why we do the deep dive. It's your shortcut, your direct line to getting genuinely informed without drowning in data. So today, we're cutting straight to something critical, something that's really becoming non-negotiable for pretty much every organization out there. We're diving into the intersection of cybersecurity and cyber insurance. Specifically, we're zoning in on privilege access management, or PAM. And look, this isn't just some tech jargon. It's fundamental to your business's financial health. It's resilience.
That's absolutely right. Cyber insurance isn't a luxury anymore, not like it maybe once was. It's a core risk mitigation tool. And insurers, they're not just ticking boxes. Their underwriting is getting incredibly rigorous. They want to see real proof of strong security practices and PAM controls. They're right there, front and center in how insurers evaluate risk.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear then. We're going to unpack 10 specific vital PAM controls. These are the controls that directly influence whether you can even get cyber insurance or how much you'll pay. We'll break down what they are step by step and really get into why insurers care so much about each one, often more than you might think.
Exactly. Think of this as, well, a practical guide. We're not just telling you what to do. We're digging into the why each of these steps seriously boosts your cybersecurity and, crucially, meets those tough requirements from insurance providers. Ready to jump in? The deep dive. Critical PAM controls for cyber insurance eligibility.
All right, let's start at the beginning, the absolute foundation. You've got to know what you're protecting. So number one is inventory and discovery of privileged accounts. This means having a full, always up-to-date list of all accounts with special access.
Yeah, it's step one for a reason. You need a systematic process. First, identify all your systems, your apps, your devices, anywhere these powerful accounts might live. Then you use tools, automated discovery, network scans, to actually find and gather data on these accounts. You pull all that into one central inventory, a single source of truth. This is key. You schedule regular updates. You have to keep validating it.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Why is simply knowing what accounts you have so critical for the insurance folks? It seems basic.
Well, it's basic but fundamental. Insurers need proof you're actively managing your assets and accounts. If you don't even know where all your privileged accounts are, how can you possibly secure them? From their perspective, an incomplete or outdated inventory means unknown risk, massive unknown risk. It suggests you don't have a real handle on your attack surface that directly impacts eligibility premiums. They might just say no if you can't show this basic control.
Right, makes sense. You can't protect what you don't know exists. Okay, so we've found the accounts. Now, how do we lock down access? That brings us to control number two. Strong authentication mechanisms, especially multi-factor authentication or MFA.
MFA, yeah. This is pretty much table stakes now for privileged access. So the steps involve first evaluating and picking MFA solutions that actually work with your current setup. You don't want to rip and replace everything if you don't have to. Then you pilot it. Test it out with a smaller group of privileged users. Then roll it out everywhere, across all those critical accounts. You might need workarounds for older legacy systems, but the goal is comprehensive coverage. And importantly, enforce the policy. MFA required for every privileged session, no exceptions.
Okay, here's where it gets interesting. That extra layer of security, we all get why MFA is good. But how does this specifically play into the cyber insurance assessment? What are they looking for beyond just checking the MFA box?
They're looking much deeper now. MFA dramatically cuts the risk of unauthorized access if credentials get stolen, which is huge. But insurers are asking more. It's not just if you have MFA, it's where. Is it on all privileged access points? Internal admin access, remote access, cloud consoles. And what kind of MFA? Are you still relying on, say, SMS texts, which we know are less secure? Or are you using stronger factors like authenticator apps or physical keys like FIDO2? They know compromised credentials are a top attack vector. So having strong, widely deployed MFA isn't just good practice, it's often a hard requirement. It directly lowers one of their biggest potential payout risks.
Got it. So it's about the breadth and the strength of the MFA implementation. Okay, next up, the principle of least privilege. This sounds straightforward, only give people the absolute minimum access they need to do their jobs. But implementing it, that seems tricky.
Oh, it is. It requires real discipline. But it's crucial. The process starts with reviewing and documenting who has what access right now. You'd be surprised what you find sometimes. Then you define roles and responsibilities clearly. What access does someone actually need for that specific role? Based on that, you reconfigure access rights. You strip away the unnecessary permissions in your systems, in your applications. And like the inventory, this isn't a one-time thing. You need periodic reviews to adjust privileges as people change rules or leave.
So what does this all mean for reducing potential damage, and how does that line up with what insurers want to see?
It's all about limiting the blast radius. Think about it. If an attacker compromises an account, if that account has admin rights to everything, the damage potential is enormous. The potential insurance claim is enormous. But if that account only has very specific, limited privileges, the damage is contained, much smaller impact. Insurers see enforcement of least privilege as direct risk reduction. They want evidence logs, policies, review records showing you systematically minimized how much damage any single compromised account can do. It directly lowers their potential financial exposure.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, containing the damage. So once someone does have legitimate privileged access, what's next? That brings us to number 4, privilege session management, monitoring what actually happens during those sessions.
Exactly. Access is granted, but now you need to watch what's being done. This involves deploying tools, session monitoring software that can record, log, and ideally even control privileged activities. You configure alerts. So if someone starts doing something unusual or against policy during a session, you get notified in real time or close to it. You need secure storage for these recordings and logs, obviously, for potential forensics down the line, and you need people trained to actually review these alerts and logs and know what to do.
This sounds like that essential audit trail we talked about earlier, but maybe even more proactive. How critical are these detailed logs for forensics and, again, for satisfying insurance requirements?
It is that audit trail, but it's more dynamic. Insurers see this as both a detective and a preventative control. The real-time alerting means you might actually stop an attack in progress, not just investigate it after the fact. That's huge. And yes, for forensics, after an incident, these recordings are invaluable. They show exactly what an attacker did step by step. For insurers, this provides clear evidence of what happened, which is critical for processing a claim efficiently. It also shows you have mechanisms to detect and react quickly, demonstrating strong operational security.
Right, seeing exactly what happened. Okay, control number 5, automated password rotation and management. We all know about strong passwords, but this focuses on automating the changes for privileged accounts. Why is that constant automated rotation such a big deal for insurers?
Because manual password management for privileged accounts just doesn't scale, and it's prone to error, or worse, neglect. So you implement a dedicated password management tool, often part of a broader PAM suite, that handles this automatically. You define strong policies, length, complexity, history, and the tool enforces them. Then you schedule the rotations. Maybe it's every 30 days, maybe even more frequently for highly critical accounts. The system just does it, and you audit the logs to make sure it is happening as scheduled. Insurers focus heavily on this because stolen or cracked credentials are still a primary way attackers get in. Regular automated rotation drastically shortens the window of opportunity for a compromised password to be useful. It's a direct, measurable way to reduce a very common attack vector, which insurers definitely like to see.
Takes the human element, the forgetting, out of it.
Got it?
Okay, number 6 shifts gears a bit towards process and governance. Access request and approval workflows. This is about having a formal, ideally automated system for when someone needs privileged access, even temporarily.
Precisely. It's about putting structure around granting powerful access. No more informal email requests or shoulder taps. You need a standardized process. The request should include why the access is needed, for how long, and maybe even a risk assessment. Then you use workflow tools, maybe in your ITSM system or PAM solution, to route that request to the designated approver. Maybe it needs manager approval, then system owner approval, and crucially, you maintain a full audit trail. Every request, who approved it, when, why, when the access was revoked. Plus, you should review the workflow itself periodically. Is it efficient? Are there bottlenecks? Are the approvers still the right people?
This sounds like creating a really clear, documented paper trail, or digital trail, I guess. How do these transparent, auditable workflows affect how closely an insurer looks at you?
It shows maturity and control. Insurers scrutinize these workflows because they indicate you have a deliberate, governed process for managing high-risk access. It's evidence that access isn't just handed out loosely. There's accountability. This transparency directly reduces the risk of insider threats, whether malicious or accidental, and prevents privilege creep, where users accumulate unnecessary access over time. These are major concerns for underwriters, so a strong workflow addresses them head-on.
Right, proving it's managed process, not chaos. Okay, number 7, continuous monitoring and analytics. This feels like it builds on session management, but maybe broader, focusing on constant vigilance for anything suspicious.
Yeah, it's about looking at the bigger picture, continuously analyzing privileged activity patterns. A key part here is often integrating your PAM solution with a some security information and event management system. The SIEM acts like a central hub, collecting logs from PAM and many other security tools, correlating events and looking for anomalies across the board. You establish baselines. What does normal privileged activity look like on this system by this type of user? Then you configure alerts for deviations, someone logging in at an odd hour, accessing unusual files, running strange commands. And again, you need to regularly review the data, tune the rules, and refine your detection capabilities. It's an ongoing cycle.
So this is really about spotting trouble super early, maybe even before a full session recording is analyzed. How does that ability to reduce incident impact play with insurers?
It's hugely important. Early detection means faster response. Faster response means less damage. Less damage means a smaller potential claim. Insurers often ask about your security metrics, things like mean time to detect, MTTD, and mean time to respond, MTTR. Strong, continuous monitoring and analytics, especially with SIEM integration, is exactly how you demonstrate and improve those metrics. It shows you have the capability to spot and react to threats quickly, significantly reducing the overall risk profile they're underwriting.
Showing you can stop the bleeding quickly. Makes sense. All right, number 8, regular audits and compliance reporting. We've talked about audit trails a lot, but this seems focused on formally proving the controls are working.
Exactly. It's the verification step. You can have all these great controls, but you need to regularly check and document that they're actually operating effectively. So you develop a formal audit schedule, maybe quarterly, maybe semi-annually, covering all the different aspects of your PAM program we've discussed. You can use automated tools here too to pull data from your PAM systems, password vaults, log repositories. Compile this into compliance reports. Review these reports with your security teams, your compliance teams, even management. And the most important part, if the audit finds gaps or deviations from policy, you need to address them promptly and document the remediation.
This sounds like gathering the hard evidence. Why is this often called an essential requirement in insurance policies? Just having the controls isn't enough.
Generally, no. Just saying you have the controls isn't enough. Insurers need proof. These regular audits and the resulting reports provide that documented evidence. It shows your security controls aren't just theoretical policies sitting on a shelf. It demonstrates they are actively implemented, enforced, and continuously verified. This builds significant trust with the insurer and shows a mature, proactive approach to managing risk, which is absolutely essential for securing coverage, especially favorable terms.
Proof positive. Okay, almost there. Number 9, incident response and remediation integration. How does PAM specifically plug into your overall plan for when things inevitably go wrong?
Right. Prevention is key. Detection is key. But you must have a plan for when an incident occurs, especially one involving privileged access. So your main incident response IR plan needs specific procedures for PAM-related anomalies. What do you do if a privileged account is suspected compromised? You need to integrate your PAM tools with your IR platforms or ticketing systems. So a critical PAM alert should automatically trigger an incident response workflow. Your IR team needs specific training. Investigating a privileged account breach might require different techniques or access to different logs than, say, a standard malware infection. And practice. Conduct drills, tabletop exercises, simulations that specifically involve privileged access scenarios to test and improve your response times and procedures.
So it's about having a ready-to-go, well-documented playbook specifically for these high-stakes incidents. How does that readiness impact the insurance risk assessment?
It demonstrates preparedness and resilience. Insurers know that breaches will happen. What differentiates lower-risk organizations is their ability to respond effectively. A swift, well-documented practice response plan significantly mitigates the potential damage, financial, operational, reputational. Knowing you can quickly contain a privileged access breach, revoke compromised credentials, identify the scope, and remediate the issue makes you a much less risky prospect for an insurer. It directly impacts their assessment of potential loss severity.
Makes sense. Being ready for the worst. Okay, finally, number 10. We've talked tech, we've talked process, now we hit the human element, user education and awareness.
Absolutely critical and sometimes overlooked amidst all the technology. You need to develop targeted training materials. These should cover not just the how-to of using PAM tools, but the why. The risks involved, the policies, phishing awareness specifically targeting privileged users, social engineering tactics, schedule regular mandatory training for everyone with any level of privilege access. This isn't just for sysadmins. It could be database admins, application owners, cloud engineers. Test their knowledge. Use quizzes, assessments, maybe even safe simulated phishing campaigns designed for privileged users. And update the training. Threats evolve, policies change, tools get updated. The education needs to keep pace.
Yeah, it always comes back to people, doesn't it? It's not just the technology, but making sure users are part of the defense. How does showing you invest in educating users influence cyber insurance, maybe even the premiums?
Because human error is still a massive factor in breaches. Accidental misuse of privileges, falling for phishing scams, using weak passwords where they shouldn't. Educating users directly minimizes these risks. It reduces the likelihood of unintentional actions leading to a security incident and a subsequent claim. Insurers recognize this. Demonstrating a robust, ongoing user education program, especially for those with privileged access, shows you're tackling risk holistically. It addresses that human element, which can definitely be a positive factor in their assessment, potentially influencing eligibility and, yes, possibly contributing to more favorable premiums.
Wow. Okay, that's a really comprehensive rundown. 10 critical PAM controls. We went from the absolute basics, like just knowing what accounts you have, all the way through strong authentication, least privilege, monitoring, automated password changes, formal workflows, auditing, incident response, and finally bringing the users into the picture with education. Each piece really does seem vital.
It really is a layered defense, isn't it? And what's striking is how implementing these isn't just about, checking an insurance box. It genuinely makes your organization more secure. But at the same time, it directly addresses those specific, rigorous requirements insurers are setting now. The key message from the sources we looked at is consistency. Regular updates, solid documentation, making sure PAM works with your other security tools, not in isolation. That's how you keep privileged access genuinely controlled, reduce your breach risk, and show insurers you're serious about managing this critical area.
So for you, listening right now, hopefully this deep dive gave you that structured shortcut. A clear view of the technical steps, the procedures, the why behind them, and how these things translate directly into better risk management, which in turn can lead to better outcomes when you're talking cyber insurance.
And maybe connecting this to the bigger picture. Cyber threats aren't getting any simpler. Breaches keep hitting the headlines. It really raises an interesting question for the future, doesn't it? Will cyber insurance eligibility demand even more specific, maybe even more automated PAM controls down the road, perhaps even dictating which tools you have to use? Or will that human element, that ability to prove you can adapt, respond effectively, and manage risk intelligently, will that ultimately remain the key differentiator for insurers? Definitely something to think about as you navigate this constantly changing cybersecurity landscape.